Hello and welcome to 365 Days of Healing. Today's little chat is about empathy and what it means to have empathy. So, empathy is the ability to have insight into what other people are thinking and feeling. So, that's what empathy means. Compassion is a different um, energy altogether, and we will talk about compassion at a later point of time. But it is sort of related to being empathetic. When we look outside of ourselves and we see that uh, people are doing things that maybe we don't agree with, it leads to us possibly being judgmental. Now, there's nothing wrong with being discerning. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being discerning and even recognizing that it's not beneficial what somebody else is doing. And that's when empathy can step in. Because if we just become judgmental and, oh, look at them, they're not dressed nicely, or they haven't done their hair, or they've got too much makeup on, or they haven't got enough makeup on, or you know, um, just how can they even begin to think that they're doing the right thing? They don't eat the right things. They don't even speak properly. They're all these things that we can be judgmental about. They're too fat, they're too thin, they're too tall, they're too short. So the list goes on and on and on. When we have empathy and we may be discerning about what we see out there in other people, when we have empathy, we actually begin to recognize their story, that they have a story behind why they do the things that they do or look the way that they look. And that is having judgments on, yes, what somebody else is doing, but empathetically understanding that they haven't, say, had the conditioning that has led to doing their hair nicely, or maybe wearing a bit of makeup, or wearing too much makeup, or all sorts of behavioral patterns that go into why somebody is the way they are. It could be that their fear is so risen that they can't be anything else but follow along whatever everybody else is doing. We're seeing that very much so in today's world, as we have in the past, that everybody just sort of follows along with the herd. Very often that is driven by fear. And if we are empathetic, we begin to understand why people make the choices that they make. It doesn't mean that we condone some behaviors, but we have empathy because we have looked behind the behavior and we start to understand why they are behaving the way they do. Now, to develop empathy, one of the ways you can do that is to listen and to have engaged listening. When you have engaged listening, you actually hear things between the words that are used, because there could be other messages coming through, not just the way somebody is saying things, or the words that they are using. It could be a tone or a pitch in their voice that gives you a clue to something else that's going on. And so you can empathetically start to recognize that what they're saying is not actually what they're meaning. And it helps to build our empathy. Now, when somebody is very angry, very often anger is covering deep hurt. Deep hurt because of past things that have happened in their world, and they've come across the same behavioral pattern in somebody else, and they are immediately angry. It's what can lead to road rage. Road rage is not just about the the person that's done something to you on the road. It's actually a trigger to become enraged because of somebody else's behavior on the road. And when you have empathy, you actually recognize that the road rage is not about the person that they say are attacking because of some perceived flaw that this person had in their driving ability, but it is actually some other thing that is triggering that road rage. When you talk to somebody and you listen with engaged listening, do you just then repeat your own story, or do you ask about those people and that you're talking to? Do you ask about them? Because when you are empathetic, you are interested in other people's stories, not just your own. I mean, your own story is important, but empathy is about understanding what, where they are coming from, why they are the way they are, what behavioral pattern has led to what they're doing. And when we have empathy, we have insight into some of the background stories that have driven a person to be a particular way. Do you have eye contact when you're talking to somebody? That is an empathetic move, because then you are engaging. These are the windows to our soul, and you are engaging at a deeper soul level. Do you have an empathetic insight into the ability to touch somebody, say, when you are talking and you perceive that they are hurt or upset, and just a hand on them, the transfer of energy, that empathetic energy that you can impart through a hand on their shoulder, is one of empathy. Empathy is also having patience with people that don't seem to be able to be what we consider as normal. And we then have insight into something that might be happening in their world. So we have utmost patience with communicating with those people. All right. Do we have empathy in the workplace? Do we have insight into, say, what our bosses are going through and the level of time and effort and energy that they are putting into their level of work? Do we have empathy as the boss or one of the managers to people that we are asking to do particular jobs? Do we have empathy that they need to feel adequate? Do we have insight into their feelings and their thoughts? And so empathy is a very valuable tool for us to that leads to very good levels of communication. So, how empathetic are you? How judgmental are you? And how much insight do you have into people's thoughts and feelings? So, with that, I'll leave you with those questions for you to answer and you to ponder. And I'll say namaste, my friends. Thank you for listening.